25. He was out for no more than 2 minutes, and then he managed to get things back into focus and make it to his feet. Eddie was no longer in the hallway. Roland's gun lay on the chest of the dead man with the red hair. The gunslinger bent, fighting off a wave of dizziness, picked it up, and dropped it into its holster with an awkward crossbody movement. I want my damn fingers back, he thought tiredly, and sighed. He tried to walk back into the ruins of the office, but best he could manage was an educated stagger. He stopped, bent, and picked up all of Eddie's clothes that he could hold in the crook of his left arm. The howlers had almost arrived. Roland believed the men winding them were probably militia, a marshal's posse, something of that sort. But there was always the possibility they might be more of Balazar's men. Eddie, he croaked. His throat was sore and throbbing again, worse even than the swollen place on the side of his head where Eddie had struck him with the revolver. Eddie didn't notice. Eddie was sitting on the floor with his brother's head cradled against his belly. He was shuddering all over and crying. The gunslinger looked for the door, didn't see it, and felt a nasty jolt that was nearly terror. Then he remembered. With both of them on this side, the only way to create the door was for him to make physical contact with Eddie. He reached for him, but Eddie shrank away, still weeping. "Don't touch me," he said. "Eddie, it's over. They're all dead, and your brother's dead too." "Leave my brother out of this!" Eddie shrieked childishly, and another fit of shuddering went through him. He cradled the severed head to his chest and rocked it. He lifted his streaming eyes to the gunslinger's face. "All the times he took care of me, man," he said, sobbing so hard that the gunslinger could barely understand him. "All the times. Why couldn't I have taken care of him just this once? After all the times he took care of me." "He took care of you all right," Roland thought grimly. "Look at you, sitting there and shaking like a man who's eaten an apple from a fever tree. He took care of you just fine. We have to go." "Go?" For the first time, some vague understanding came into Eddie's face, and it was followed immediately by alarm. "I ain't going nowhere, especially not back to that other place, where those big crabs, or whatever they are, ate Jack." Someone was hammering on the door, yelling to open up. "Do you want to stay here and explain all these bodies?" the gunslinger asked. "I don't care," Eddie said. "Without Henry, it doesn't matter. Nothing does." "Maybe it doesn't matter to you," Roland said. "But there are others involved, prisoner." "Don't call me that!" Eddie shouted. "I'll call you that until you show me you can walk out of the cell you're in," Roland shouted back. It hurt his throat to yell, but he yelled just the same. "Throw that rotten piece of meat away and stop playing." Eddie looked at him, cheeks wet, eyes wide, and frightened. "This is your last chance," an amplified voice said from outside. To Eddie, the voice sounded eerily like the voice of a game show host. "The SWAT squad has arrived. I repeat, the SWAT squad has arrived." "What's on the other side of that door for me?" Eddie asked the gunslinger quietly. "Go on and tell me. If you can tell me, maybe I'll come. But if you lie, I'll know." "Probably death," the gunslinger said. "But before that happens, I don't think you'll be bored. I want you to join me on a quest. Of course, all will probably end in death. Death for the four of us in a strange place. But if we should win, though," his eyes gleamed. "If we win, though, Eddie, you'll see something beyond all beliefs of all your dreams." "What thing?" "The Dark Tower." "Where is this tower?" "Far from the beach where you found me. How far, I know not." "What is it?" "I don't know that either, except that it may be kind of a bolt, a central linchpin that holds all of existence together, all existence, all time, and all size." "You said 4. Who are the other 2? "I know them not, for they have yet to be drawn." As I was drawn, or as you'd like to draw me. Yes. From outside there was coughing explosion like a mortar round. The glass of the leaning tower front window blew in. The bar room began to fill with choking clouds of tear gas. Well? Roland asked. He could grab Eddie, force the doorway into existence by their contact, and then pummel them both through. But he had seen Eddie risk his life for him. He had seen this hag-ridden man behave with all the dignity of a born gunslinger in spite of his addiction, and the fact that he had been forced to fight as naked as the day he was born, and he wanted Eddie to decide for himself. Quests, adventures, towers, worlds to win, Eddie said, and smiled wanly. Neither of them turned as fresh tear gas rounds flew through the windows to explode, hissing on the floor. The first acrid tendrils of the gas were now slipping into Balazar's office. Sounds better than one of those Edgar Rice Burroughs books about Mars Henry used to read me sometimes when we were kids. He only left out one thing. What's that? The beautiful bare-ass-breasted girls, the gunslinger smiled. On the way to the Dark Tower, he said, anything is possible. Another shudder racked Eddie's body. He raised Henry's head, kissed it one cool, ash-colored cheek, and laid the gore-strict relic gently aside. He got to his feet. Okay, he said. I didn't have anything else planned for tonight anyway. Take these, Roland said, and shoved the clothes at him. Put on your shoes if nothing else. You've cut your feet. On the sidewalk outside, two cops wearing plexiglass faceplates, flak jackets, and Kevlar vests smashed the leaning tower's front door. In the bathroom, Eddie, dressed in his underpants, his Adidas sneakers, and nothing else, handed the sample packages of Keflex to Roland one by one, and Roland put them into the pockets of Eddie's jeans. When they were all safely stowed, Roland slid his arm around Eddie's neck again, and Eddie gripped Roland's left hand again. The door was suddenly there, a rectangle of darkness. Eddie felt the wind from that other world blow his sweaty hair back from his forehead. He heard the waves rolling up that stony beach. He smelled the tang of sour sea salt. And, in spite of everything, all his pain and sorrow, he suddenly wanted to see this tower of which Roland spoke. He wanted to see it very much. And with Henry dead, what was there in this world for him? Their parents were dead, and there hadn't been a steady girl since he got heavily into the smack 3 years ago. Just a steady parade of sluts, needlers, and nosers. None of them straight. Fuck that action. They stepped through, Eddie actually leading a little. On the other side, he was suddenly racked with fresh shudders of agonizing muscle cramps, the first symptoms of serious heroin withdrawal. And with them, he also had the first alarmed second thoughts. Wait, he shouted. I want to go back for a minute. His desk or the other office, the SAG. If they were keeping Henry doped, there's gotta be junk, heroin. I need it. He looked pleadingly at Roland, but the gunslinger's face was stony. That part of your life is over, Eddie, he said. He reached out with his left hand. No! Eddie screamed, clawing at him. No, you don't get it, man! I need it! He might as well been clawing stone. The gunslinger swept the door shut. It made a dull, clapping sound that bespoke utter finality and fell backward onto the sand. A little dust puffed up from its edges. There was nothing behind the door, and now no word written upon it. This particular portal between worlds had closed forever. No! Eddie screamed, and the gulls screamed back at him, as if in jeering contempt. The monstrosities asked him questions, perhaps suggesting he could hear them a little better if he were to come a little closer, and Eddie fell over on his side, crying and shuddering and jerking with cramps. Your need will pass, the gunslinger said, and managed to get one of the sample packets out of the pocket of Eddie's jeans, which were so like his own. Again, he could read some of those letters, but not all. Keflet, the word looked like. Keflet, medicine from that other world. Kill or cure, Roland murmured, and dry swallowed 2 of the capsules. Then he took the other 3 assed in, and lay next to Eddie, and took him in his arms as well as he could, and after some difficult time, both of them slept. Shuffle. The time following that night was broken time for Roland. Time that didn't really exist as time. What he remembered was only a series of images, moments, conversations without context. Images flashing past like one-eyed Jackson, 3 eyes and 9, and the bloody black bitch queen of spiders in a card-sharp's rapid shuffle. Later on, he asked Eddie how long that time lasted, but Eddie didn't know either. Time had been destroyed for both of them. There is no time in hell, and each of them was in his own private hell. Roland, the hell of the fever and infection, Eddie, the hell of withdrawal. It was less than a week, Eddie said. That's all I know for sure. How do you know that? A week's worth of pills was all I had to give you. After that, you were gonna have to do one thing or the other on your own. Get well or die. Right. Shuffle. There's a gunshot as twilight draws dawn to dark. A dry crack, impinging on the inevitable and ineluctable sound. The breakers, dying on the desolate beach. Kablam! He smells a whiffle of gunpowder. Trouble, the gunslinger thinks weakly, and gropes for revolvers that aren't there. Oh no, it's the end, But there's no more, as something starts to smell. Shuffle. Good in the dark. Something, after all this long, dark, dry time, something is cooking. It's not just the smell. He can hear the snap and pop of twigs. He can see the faint orange flicker of a campfire. Sometimes, when the sea breeze gusts, he smells fragrant smoke, as well as that mouth-watering other smell. Food, he thinks. My God, am I hungry? If I'm hungry, maybe I'm getting well. Eddie, he tries to say, but his voice is all gone. His throat hurts so bad. We should have brought some Aston, too, he thinks. And then tries to laugh. All the drugs for him and none for Eddie. Eddie appears. He's got a tin plate. One the gunslinger would know anywhere. It came, after all, from his own purse. On it are streaming chunks of whitish pink meat. What? He tries to ask, and nothing comes out but a squeaky little farting sound. Eddie reads the shape of his lips. I don't know, he says crossly. All I know is that it didn't kill me. Eat it, damn you. He sees Eddie is very pale. Eddie is shaking, and he smells something coming from Eddie that is either shit or death, and he knows Eddie is in a bad way. He reaches out a groping hand, wanting to give comfort. Eddie strikes it away. I'll feed you, he said crossly. Fucked if I know why. I ought to kill you. I would, if I didn't think that if you could get through into my world once, maybe you could do it again. Eddie looks around. And if it wasn't that, I'd be alone, except for them. He looked back at Roland, and fit off a shuddering runs through him. It is so fierce that he almost spills the chunk of meat on the tin plate. At last it passes. Eat, goddamn you! The gunslinger eats. The meat is more than not bad. The meat is delicious. He manages 3 pieces and then everything blurs into a new shuffle. Effort to speak, but all he can do is whispers. The cup of Eddie's ear is pressed against his lips, except every now and then it shudders away as Eddie goes through one of his spasms. He says it again. North. Up on the beach. Just how do you know? Just know, he whispers. Eddie looks at him. You're crazy, he says. The gunslinger smiles and tries to black out, but Eddie slaps him hard. Eddie's blue eyes fly open, and for a moment they are so alive and electric, Eddie looks uneasy. Then, his lips draw back in a smile that is mostly snarl. Yeah, you can drone off, he says. But first, you gotta take your dope. It's time. Son says it anyway. I guess. I was never no Boy Scout, so I don't know for sure. But I guess it's close enough for government's work. Open wide, Roland. Open wide for Dr. Eddie, you kidnapping fuck. The gunslinger opened his mouth, like a baby for the breast. Eddie put 2 of the pills in his mouth and then slops fresh water carelessly into Roland's mouth. Roland guessed it must be from a hill stream somewhere to the east. It might be poison. Eddie wouldn't know fair water from foul. On the other hand, Eddie seems fine. And there's no real choice, is there? No. He swallows, coughs, and nearly strangles while Eddie looks at him indifferently. Roland reaches for him. Eddie tries to draw away. The gunslinger's bull-shooter eyes command him. Roland draws him close, so close he can smell the stink of Eddie's sickness, and Eddie can smell the stink of his. The combination sickens and compels them both. Only 2 choices here, Roland whispers. Don't know how it is in your world, but only 2 choices here. Stand and maybe live, or die on your knees with your head down and the stink of your own armpits in your nose. Nothing. He hacks out a cough. Nothing to me. Who are you? Eddie screams at him. Your destiny, Eddie, the gunslinger whispers. Why don't you just eat shit and die? Eddie asks him. The gunslinger tries to speak, but before he can, he floats off as the cards shuffle. Kablam! Roland opened his eyes, a billion stars wheeling through the blackness, then closes them again. He doesn't know what's going on, but he thinks everything is okay. The deck is still moving. The cards still shuffle. More of the sweet, tasty chunks of meat. He feels better. Eddie looks better too. But he also looks worried. They're getting closer, he says. They might be ugly, but they ain't completely stupid. They know what I'm doing. Somehow they know. And they don't dig it. Every night they get a little closer. It might be smart to move on when daybreak comes, if you can. Or it might be the last daybreak we ever see. What? This is not exactly a whisper, but a husk somewhere between a whisper and real speech. Them, Eddie said and gestures towards the beach. Data check them a chum, all that shit. I think they're like us, Roland. All for eating, but not too big on getting eaten. Suddenly, in an utter blast of horror, Roland realizes what the whitish pink chunks of meat Eddie has been feeding him have been. He cannot speak. Revulsion robs him of what little voice he had managed to get back. But Eddie sees everything he wants to say on his face. What did you think I was doing? He nearly snarls. Calling Red Lobster for takeout? They're poison, Roland whispers. That's why... Yeah, that's why you're hors de combat. What I'm trying to keep you from being, Roland, my friend, is hors d'oeuvre as well. As far as poison goes, rattlesnakes are poison, but people eat them. Rattlesnake tastes real good, like chicken. I bred that somewhere. They look like lobsters to me, so I decided to take a chance. What else are we gonna eat? Dirt? I shot one of those fuckers and cooked the living Christ out of it. There wasn't anything else, and actually, they taste pretty good. I've been shooting one a night, and just after the sun starts to go down. They're not really lively until it gets completely dark. I never saw you turning the stuff down. Eddie smiles. I like to think maybe I got one of the 2 that ate Jack. I like to think I'm eating that thing. It, like, eases my mind, you know. One of them ate part of me too, the gunslinger husks out. 2 fingers, 1 toe. That's also cool. Eddie keeps smiling. His face is pallid, shark-like. But some of that ill looks like it's gone now. And the smell of shit and death, which has hung around him like a shroud, seems to be going away. Fuck yourself, the gunslinger husks. Roland shows a flash of spirit, Eddie cries. Maybe you ain't gonna die after all, darling. I think that's marvelous. Live, Roland says. The husk has become a whisper again. The fishhooks are returning to his throat. Yeah? Eddie looks at him, then nods, and answers his own question. Yeah, I think you mean to. Once I thought you were going, and once I thought you were gone. Now it looks like you're going to get better. The antibiotics are helping, I guess. But mostly I think you're hauling yourself up. What for? Why the fuck do you keep trying so hard to keep alive on this scuzzy beach? Tower, he mouths, because now he can't even manage a husk. You and your fucking tower, Eddie says, and starts to turn away, and then turns back, surprised, as Roland's hand clasps on an arm like a manacle. They look into each other's eyes, and Eddie says, all right. North, the gunslinger mouths. North, I told you. Yes, told him that? He thinks so, but it's lost in the shuffle. How do you know? Eddie screams at him in a sudden frustration. He raises his fists as if to strike Roland, then lowers them. I just know. So why do you waste my time and energy asking me foolish questions? He wants to reply, but before he can, the cards shuffle. Being dragged along, bounced and bumped, his head lolling helplessly from one side to the other, bound to some kind of weird traverse by his own gun belts, and he can hear Eddie Dean singing a song which is so weirdly familiar he at first believes this must be a delirium dream. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Where did you hear that? He wants to ask. Did you hear me singing it, Eddie? And where are we? But before he can ask anything, shuffle. Thank you everybody for sitting down with another part of Majin reading Drawing of the Three, and I believe we have to end in the middle of a shuffle. We will see you next time when the shuffle continues. Long days and pleasant nights, listener.